Our story starts in Brush Prairie, Washington. Yeah, that's a real place with a population of 2,500 people. And while growing up, there was a spark that hit my man Justin, and he wanted to become a professional chef, and he was inspired by his family. Well, he didn't just go to any culinary school. He went to the Hogwarts of culinary schools, the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America, to learn cooking in New York. So yeah, that was a big adjustment for him to make, going from 2,500 population to multiple millions of people. His path takes a few turns until he finally, in the end, goes back to where it all began, teaching in a high school. Justin now gets to instill in students the love and skill of cooking. And he is going to explain why he loves cooking, what inspired him and keeps him going, and will drop a few words of encouragement for you. Oh yeah, and I also get to present a couple of questions from my grandkids. So buckle up and let's meet Justin Bennett.
All right, Justin Bennett, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm kind of stoked about this. So let me run through just a couple of quick things. You are currently a culinary instructor. Is that right? Is that the title?
Yes. I am an assistant to the main culinary instructor at the program, but I do teach students over at Cascadia Tech.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so did you grow up in Battleground?
Yeah, Brush Prairie technically, but
Okay.
yeah, because
Oh,
I went to
even.
Prairie High School.
Oh, did you? Okay, okay. So yeah, and it's funny when I heard you when I was going through like your timeline and we were discussing things just the other day. Um, there were a couple of things that I thought were kind of awesome about coming from a smaller community. But first off, you are you went to a culinary school to learn how to cook, and then you cooked at a couple different places as a as a cook, a sous chef, and that sort of thing. But take me back to when you first got interested in cooking. When's that spark where you said, "Well, that's interesting," and you were just like kind of captivated? Was it a person? Was it? Can you point to something?
Yeah, so I feel like I've always wanted to be in a kitchen. I've always wanted to cook. I've always wanted to bake. That's always been kind of a passion of mine. And so even from a really young age, probably 5, maybe 6. I mean, maybe even younger than that. I always remember my mom baking in the kitchen. She made wedding cakes and birthday cakes and stuff, all that stuff on the side, versus what she like actually does in the real world. But to me, it was always like, wow, my mom does this baking stuff. It's like, that's really cool. I want to do that someday. And then my grandma, she also did baking and a lot of cooking and stuff like that. So growing up, I had that influence in my life of um, grandparents and parents that were always cooking around me. Like even the nightly dinners growing up, we didn't do a lot of here's a frozen bag of this and throw it into a pot and cook. I mean, yeah, there was nights that we might do that, obviously, because we
Yeah.
did sports and whatnot, and we were busy. Uh, but there was a lot of home cooked meals. So even by the time I got to middle school, so when I was like maybe 10, 11, somewhere in there, I was starting to cook the dinners and cooking them
Wow.
from scratch and doing things like that. And I'm sure there were nights where my parents were like, "Yeah, let's not try that again." Um,
Sure.
but then there were
Sure.
nights where like, "Wow, this is really good. We should definitely have this again." Wow, he really does have a passion for cooking. And so let's see. So by the time, so that was just when I was a kid. When I got to high school, I was always making cookies. Like if you asked all my teachers growing up, I'd always bribe them with chocolate chip cookies, like all the time. Even
Yeah.
in middle school, I'd always have chocolate chip cookies, like a couple cookies here and there. It's like, hey, it makes my grade go up, right? And so there's always that aspect. I always loved that. Well, then when I got to high school, my junior, or let's see, sophomore year of high school, I was like, man, I really want to do running start at Clark because I think that would be really fun. and somebody mentioned to me that the at the time the Clark County Skill Center, which is now where I work, which is Cascadia Technical Academy, they have a culinary program there, and it's state of the art. You're gonna love the chef. You're gonna love everything about it. So I took a tour of it, and I was like, "Wow, this is really cool." I was like, "This is exactly what I do," and it's free. It was a completely free program for high school students to take, as long as your grades met um, the standard that you needed to do to get there.
Hmm.
You're fine. And so I applied, I got in, and I did 2 years of that. So when I graduated high school, I had um, a, a small uh, degree per se or certificate from there that was actually through the ACF, to the American Culinary Federation, which is where you get like your master chefs and stuff like that. So it's kind of like the lowest setting of that, which is called the it's a fundamental cook is what that certification is. So by the time I graduated, I had that. And so from there, I was like, I really want to pursue this. This is really something that I love to do. Um, and so I decided, I'm going to go and I'm going to visit. It's called the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America. It's in New York. And I had heard of it. I'd seen pictures. I was like, wow, it looks really cool. Like, I'm not kidding. They call it the Hogwarts of culinary schools because the building that you walk into used to be a monastery, like for monks and stuff like
Okay.
that. And they turned it into this ginormous culinary school. And I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. So we went and visited, and it was just breathtaking. And I was like, wow, this is definitely what I want to do with my life. So that's where we went from there.
That's fantastic. Okay, so you start out, I'm assuming you're a little kid, you're making simple meals. They start becoming more and more complicated. You talk like your mom baked, but did she also like cook and do other things, or was it mostly baking?
She did cook. Not I would say not as much. I mean, yeah, her meals were great. I mean, obviously there's always gonna be like those, oh yeah, mom, you shouldn't make that again kind of meals. Um, but yeah, she did cook, and I did learn from her as well. I mean, my dad cooks as well, but not as much. Um, and but yeah, I would say definitely the baking side is where I get from her. She's very artistic, very. I mean, she's a project manager for Georgia Pacific, so it's like she's she designs buildings and stuff like that, and that's what she went to school for. So she has that art background in her, and I think that really passed on to me of the design aspect of stuff.
Got it. And you said something about a grandmother in there, right?
Yeah, so my family is Swedish, that has Swedish backgrounds, and so my great grandma, she was a really good baker as well. I didn't get to experience as much with her, with baking cookies and stuff like that. But I've been told stories that her cookies were like amazing. Like she'd always bring them to parties, and everybody wanted those. Like she had these little cream wafer cookies that were like that was her thing. Uh, and then my other grandma, that's from Idaho. She's very ranch style, country style cooking. Like when she cooks food, she cooks it for 100 and expects it's all going to be gone. And so there's also that end of the cooking spectrum where I love to cook like that too. I love the satisfaction that comes from when you make a meal and it's gone because everybody loves it. And that right there shows me like, wow, that spark right there, it just gives you a good feeling inside where people love your food.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay. So, oh, are we talking New York City or New York like is it New York City or a city in
So
the
the
city?
the school is actually about an hour and a half north of New York City. It's just outside Poughkeepsie, which is, like I said, about an hour and a half north. It's in a town called Hyde Park. But yeah, it's about an hour and a half north by train. Takes forever
Okay.
to drive there.
All right. So with that, I'm actually not familiar at all with that area. What was the I'm sure that there was some sort of culture shock, but I don't know. I mean, is there anything similar between that and Battleground, or was it just a completely different
I
environment?
so for me, I felt like Poughkeepsie was very like Gresham. That's what I would call that. It was very kind of the outskirts of New York. So you didn't have the big city. Like even in the 2 years that I lived in New York, I only went to the city like 6 times because I didn't enjoy it. Like it was cool to visit and like I sightseed and all sorts of things. But I was like, I one could never live here because there's way too many people. And two, I just didn't enjoy it. So like I didn't really go to the city that much. I was more focused. I mean, I was there for school, and so I was more focused on school anyway. But yeah, it wasn't my thing, and I really missed the West Coast on the East versus the East Coast. The weather's very different over there. I mean, you have to get used to that when you wake up and you're like, oh, there's a foot of snow outside, and you're like, is school
Wow.
canceled? And they're like, school's not canceled. Are you kidding me? They just push it to the sides and call it good. And you're like, but at home we get 2 inches of snow, and it's like everything freezes over and you
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
do
yeah.
anything.
All right, I hope that you are enjoying the interview. I am on the lookout for 3 people right now. I'm looking for a repo man. I am looking for somebody that is a digital nomad that travels around the country in their van working remotely. They may even be a YouTuber. And then I'm also looking for somebody that works in a lighthouse. I think that these are very, very interesting ways of living and making a living. And I want to talk to these people. I want to find out how they got there, what the cool parts of their job are, what the scary parts of their job are, what the unexpected things were that they found when they started working there. So if you know these people and you can connect me, hook me up. Okay. Down in the description, there is a link to the form where people can sign up and get on the show. Okay. If you are not in the week that this video is put out, no worries. I am always going to be on the lookout for these 3 people. Okay. So if you know them, hook me up. Okay. Thank you. Now let's get back to Justin's story because he is going to do some cool stuff here in just a little bit. Bye bye.
Like everything freezes over and you
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
do
yeah.
anything. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very different beast over there on the East Coast. Like I said, the weather's different. I remember there was days where it literally snowed one day, and 2 days later it was 75 degrees outside,
Yeah.
and we got sunburned. And it was like, what just happened? Where did the weather go? And so yeah, it was just the weather was different, the people were different. The one thing that was really cool about New York was that the people that were there, especially at the school, people come from all over the world.
Yes.
Um,
Okay, go on.
and so you really got to meet all different types of people from everywhere. You're not centrally located. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of people from kind of that area. I mean, it's just such different being on the East Coast and West Coast, where the West Coast, like it takes 3 hours to get to Seattle, versus if you drive from New York 3 hours, you could be in 6 different states. Like
Oh,
it's so much different over there. And
right.
all these big cities are so close to each other. Where yeah, I'm from New Jersey, I'm from Vermont, I'm from Massachusetts, and it's like yeah, well they're all only a few hours away from each other. So
Yeah.
it's just a very different thing.
That is interesting. Being on the West Coast and traveling to 2 or 3 different states would take you a very long time. And
Yeah,
and yeah, that's funny. Okay, and then yeah, so it sounds like it's a mid-sized suburb of New York is kind of what you're
yeah,
describing scale wise.
exactly. I would say, yeah, that's what I would call it. It's a much smaller town upstate New York. So well,
Okay,
I don't even call it
so
upstate technically.
so you met some international students, and what was that like? What I was there somebody in particular that stands out, or was there something that some people and some cultures that you kind of bumped into that you were like, this is wild. I can't believe that I'm here because you came from Battleground, Washington, and
Mhm.
that's a very, very like everybody looks the same. It's super homogenous, and it's just a small town, and
Yeah.
um, it's a suburb of a small town, and and now you go to this place that attracts people from around the world, and you're like surrounded by people that don't look anything like you, that are from backgrounds that don't resemble yours. And here you go, Justin. What was that like? I mean, and did you meet anybody? Is there somebody that you'd be like, shout out to so and so because I really loved them. They were the best.
There was definitely a few people that I really got connected with. Um, Going from Battleground Washington to New York like that. I mean, I literally got dropped off the plane. My parents brought me up there and said bye, and I was on my own. And it was like, have fun. And I mean, I chose that because I was like looking when I was looking at schools in general. I was going, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to go big. If I'm going to pay the money to do it, I'm going to pay the money and do it. I'm not just going to try it, or I'm not going to pick like at the time we had eight culinary schools between Portland and Bend and Coos Bay and stuff like that. There were eight culinary schools. Well, now there's two, and like they're all the Portland ones are gone. They've all left, or they've closed down, and so there's not very much.
Is there a reason why?
Going-
Why'd they close?
the oh gosh, part of it was I think oversaturation of culinary people. All of a
Okay.
sudden, it's like everybody was going to culinary school, and it was like, okay, well now you have 5,000 cooks that are like they all want jobs, and it's like, well, okay, well now you have too many people that want jobs, so now the
Yeah.
industry is overpopulated,
Yeah.
and so they had to choose what to do there. I know Cordon Bleu had their own issues, and then Western Culinary has some other issues too. But like the Art Institute of Portland, they closed their culinary program and whatnot. But anyway, so I got off track there. Going to school, meeting all those different people. I mean, even the first roommate I had, he was from Minnesota. Yeah, Minnesota, and he was great. Loved that guy. I think he went on and actually worked at French Laundry in California as a maitre d or a server or something. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. I was like, that was not something that I ever wanted to do. Was going to fine dining. It was just not my thing. But for him, it was a total fit for him. And then my second roommate, he was from South Korea, and it was just very different culture for him. And even the temperature, let's just say that temperature of the room, right? I'm like, I want it colder, and he's like, no, 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 I want it like 85 degrees. And I'm like, no way, that's way too hot, buddy. I'm like, he's got the heat cranked, and I got the window, and it's 2 degrees outside open, so it's cooling me down. Like it's just a very different aspect of that, and even the culture of what they bring. So like when let's say we all go to the lunchroom, which they call Farquharson Hall. It's this big open cathedral style room that has stained glass ceiling. Like it's really cool. And you sit there and you look, and they have this buffet line of desserts. And at the very end, there's a rice cooker. And you're like, why is there a rice? It's so random. Why is there a rice cooker? Well, you have to look at who's there, who's at the school. And there's a very high percentage of, or at the time, I don't know if it's still true, there was a high percentage of South people from South Korea. And a lot of them eat rice with every single meal. So
Wow.
even though they go to the kitchens and then they get their food from the different kitchens, whatever, they'll still have a bowl of rice with their food. And it was like, okay, that's interesting. I had never seen that before. But going there, it's like that was just a common thing. They always had
Wow.
rice.
Okay. Wow. So okay. So you go to the school. You've got roommates and classes. With respect to that, did you? So how long were you there? How many years?
I was there for 2 years. They
Okay.
have
Did you?
they kind of split your 2 years in half. Yes, kind of, sort of. I say, you do your first 30 weeks of the program, and then you go on an internship for 30 weeks,
Okay.
and
Oh,
then
tell me
you come
about that.
back. Yeah, and then you come back to the school and you finish the school, and then you graduate, and you can either go and get your bachelor's degree, or you can go into industry. I chose not to do my bachelor's. I was like that was a lot of money at the time to do that again, and I was like, I don't know, I'd rather go out in the industry, and maybe someday I'll do the bachelor's, but I don't think that'll ever actually happen. But now that it's been 10 years now since I graduated. Anyway, the internships, everybody goes on internships. You can choose where you want to go. as long as they're an approved site. I decided to come back to the Pacific Northwest. I went to Cannon Beach and I worked at EVOO Cannon Beach Cooking School.
Okay.
They actually closed here just this last year and a half, whatever it's been, because they retired. There's a lot of training that I learned there in that kind of short amount of time. Because I actually came back after I graduated, started working there as a sous chef for the summer.
Okay.
There's so much I learned from Bob there that I still use to this day. There's
Mm,
cooking methods that he taught me that I didn't learn at school, because at
mm,
school there's a lot of the cooking methods that you're using are very like classical French techniques, and then you go out in the industry and people are like, "What are you doing? This is how you do it, right?" And they're like, "No, nobody does it that way." You're like, "Oh, okay." So you get in an industry like, let's just say you're cooking fish. Let's a steak or a salmon steak, right? You cut it up, you got it all ready to go, you seasoned it, you're gonna cook it. Well, there's lots of different ways to cook. There's lots of different ways to do things. There's not just one set way, or even like eggs. You're not one way to cook an egg. There's thousands and thousands of ways to cook an egg. He taught me a way to cook a salmon where it's kind of a two-step method where you get your pan screaming hot, add your oil in, you put your skin side down, and when that salmon releases off that pan, you flip it over onto a sheet pan and and then you bake it or roast it in the oven and you finish it in the oven. So you're just getting that caramelization on the skin, and then you're finishing it in the oven. He taught me how to do that, and like still to this day, I still do that with my salmon because I find it makes a really good piece of salmon.
got it. Okay, so when you left culinary school, did you leave with any kind of specialty? Is that how that worked, or was it what you did just general stuff?
So for your first year associate's degree, do you either do a culinary route or you do the baking route? I chose the culinary route versus the baking. I didn't really feel like I love baking, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. I mean, it's still I enjoy it. It's not my favorite thing, but I do enjoy it. I'm glad I chose not to do the baking route versus the culinary. Um, but so when you graduate with your associate's degree, it's just a general, it's either culinary or baking. There's no preference. But when you do your bachelor's degree, that's when you would decide, oh, I want to go into a more entrepreneur route or culinary science or restaurant management kind of group. Like there's all sorts of different ones you can choose from. So I never got to that point. So when I graduated, I just had a general AOS degree.
Got it. Okay, so when I look back over my own knowledge of what a sous chef is, the only things that I have to reference are going to be Hell's Kitchen on TV and Ratatouille in the movie theater. Um, but I'm pretty sure that isn't the normal sous chef life. What is a sous chef? What does that guy do?
So a sous chef is like your chef's assistant. That's pretty much what it is in the kitchen. So typically in a kitchen, you'd have what's called the brigade system. It's classical style layout of your kitchen, where if you're going into French style, you have certain names for all those stations. But I'm going to keep it in English just because I can't pronounce all those names. Uh, but you'd have like, let's say you have your line cooks, right? Well, if you had your line cooks, you may have a sous chef that also works on line. If you have a smaller kitchen, you're not going to necessarily have all these different stations per se. You may only have a line. That's all you have. But if you have a little bit larger kitchen, you might have pantry cooks. You might have your dishwashers. You might have, like I said, your line cooks. You'll have your front of house. You'll have all of that aspect. Well, your sous chef is kind of that hierarchy. It's like one step ahead of everybody else. So you have your basic employees, then you
Hmm.
have your sous chef, and
Hmm.
then you'd have like your executive chef or your manager, or it could even be the owner. The owner might be the executive chef. And usually they could have one to two sous chefs depending on the size of your kitchen. Or you could have even more if you wanted.
Hmm.
But that's pretty typical. Depending on the size, like I said, of the kitchen crew. Um, that's pretty standard.
Okay, so, and you know what? Somewhere in my head, I've got this idea that there are sous chefs that specialize in like cooking vegetables or chopping, or is that a real thing, or am I just
Yeah.
making stuff up?
So in
Okay.
the movie Ratatouille, they actually explain it really well when he's on the roof of the kitchen, right? And he's looking down, he's like, "Oh, you've got your entremets, you've got your poissonnets, you got all these people, right? Those are actual positions. And in a traditional brigade style system, that would be a French style. You would have those cooks that the people that only make soup, you only make the fish, you only do the beef, you do the chicken. You have all of those different stations, and that is your thing.
Mm,
You
got
don't
it.
see it as often over in the United States. It's not as common. But there are restaurants. That is one thing I did notice also between New York and West Coast. The West Coast doesn't have very many fine dining restaurants. And if you think fine dining, what do you think of when you think fine dining? Like what kind of
I
restaurant
just
would you
think
say?
of I think of a really nice. I think of a menu that has a lot of language that I don't understand. I think of like dim lighting and like the ambiance of the room, and yeah, that's the sort of thing that that I think of. And then I think of like extraordinary presentation and
Mhm.
that sort of thing. So that's what I think.
When so there's only a handful of Michelin, like three Michelin star restaurant, even one Michelin star restaurants in on the West Coast. There's only a handful, and they're all in California. There's nothing up here in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, anything like that. They're all in California. The closest one to us is probably French Laundry. I don't actually know if there's any closer than that. And I mean, I personally have never been to a Michelin star restaurant. I've been to a fine dining, like
Yeah.
actual fine dining when I was in New York, but that's as close as I've been. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing because it was such a different level of service that I had ever experienced. That it's like I don't know how to do this. Like I'm so nervous because when I go to restaurants, I'm always like, oh, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at this. I'm not worried always about like, oh, what am I experiencing? Am I having fun? Right. There's so many
Uh-huh.
times where I go into restaurants and I'm like, oh, I'm critiquing because, and I don't want to. It's
Yeah,
just a
yeah,
natural thing. Well,
yeah,
when I go into restaurants, it's like the first thing I always look at is the tablecloth. Is the tablecloth the right side? Does it even have a tablecloth? Right? There's
yeah,
a lot of restaurants that don't even use tablecloths anymore.
yeah.
And so it's like, is the tablecloth right side up or is it upside down? Right? Is the silverware clean and dirty? Like those are just things that I naturally see, not trying to do, but I naturally do it anyway. And it drives
Yeah.
my wife crazy, but
Yeah, yeah. So, um, when you came back from culinary school, was there a meal that you showed off with that you were like, you guys have got to try this, that you showed, you know, your family and or friends?
um, I don't know. So when I was at school, everything you did was very basic. So all the things that you were being taught were the fundamentals of how to cook. You literally started with cutting vegetables. That was the very first thing. That very first class you do, I had a certified master chef as my instructor. His name's Rudy Speckcamp. He passed away a couple years ago. But yeah, he was the very first instructor I had at school. And I had to go into the class trying to know nothing. And it's a really hard concept to handle of when you're like,
Mm,
I know nothing, I know nothing, I know nothing. But you don't want to make mistakes. So you want to be like, oh, I know everything. I know how to do this. I know how to do this. And you have to go in with that. You have to go with that open mind, right?
yeah.
And even at the current job that I work with, so Chef Andrew McCauley, he says that all the time with students. Go into something knowing nothing, because if you go in knowing nothing, by the end of it, you'll know more than you did before. Because if you
Mm,
go in with a closed mind, you're not going to learn anything because you're stuck in your way of how to do something. And so that's something that I learned back 15 years ago that I still hold today and try to teach the students that I currently have. go into it knowing nothing, because if you have that willingness to learn and do it, you'll be able to do it. And so anyway, so the food items, I don't know if coming from back from school, was there any items that I specifically that I was like, oh, we have to have this, have to have this. There might have been a few. They were like, oh, this is a classic dish. I'm going to make it for you. And we try it. And we're like, okay, what can we do to change it? Because it's like, it's very basic. Like if we
Mhm.
made chicken fricassee, which is like this classic French chicken dish with a creamy sauce and stuff on it. It's like, okay, but is there variations of it? Because this is very like, nah, it's okay. It's very basic.
Yeah.
And so that's what we learned. And then you adapt from there and add on to it and change things and whatnot. So I don't know if there was actually things that I'm like, oh, I'm gonna remake this at home, but I'll do variations of it.
When you went there to school, and maybe even more with respect to the ones where you had to like go out to the place at Coos Bay. It's Coos Bay's, right?
There's a culinary school down there, yeah.
No, the place that you went to do.
Cannon Beach, sorry.
Okay. Um, so when you went out there, is there anything like they sent you out there to learn stuff? Why did they send you out to go to that versus just teaching this stuff in school? Were they trying to make a point, or
Mhm. So
what was
the
that?
I think the whole point of them going and sending you out into industry is so that they teach you the basics, and then now you're going to take those basic skills and you're going to apply them into the industry, because they've changed their rules of who they accept into the CIA. It used to be you had to have like 5 or 10 years of experience in the industry before you could even go to culinary school. And nowadays,
Oh,
I'm like, man, if you're in industry for 10 years, I'm like, it'd be really hard to go to culinary school, because now you're learning the fundamentals and you're like, I've been doing these for 10 years. Like,
yeah.
why am I cutting a potato? Like, I know how to cut a potato. It's not that hard. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, you're working on knife skills and making sure everything's the perfect diameters and perfect squares and stuff like that. But so they send you out into industry, and you're now learning stuff from industry. Now, anyway, I got to learn what it was like to be in industry with other people,
Hmm.
and really be told like, hey, let's not do it that way. Even though you learned it that way, we're gonna do it this way because this is a better way to do it. And so when you went back to school, you had other ideas, and even chefs would be like, oh, that's a good idea, you can do it that way, is fine, but this is the way I want you to do it here. So that's one thing working in kitchens, is you'll find that everybody does things just a little bit different than others,
Yeah.
and you have to adapt because they're the ones that's signing your paycheck for you, and you you need to do it the way that they want it done.
Yeah, I would expect so. Okay. So, um, gosh, I don't even know. I'm gonna ask it anyway. When you go to school, culinary school, do they haze people?
No, not at least not at CIA. They definitely don't do that. CIA is very different because they have they don't necessarily have like freshmen or sophomores, stuff like that at college, because they have start dates every 3 weeks. So there's new
Dang.
students coming every 3 weeks. There's new students coming in,
Wow.
and they can vary from 80 students to 40 students to 20 students. This depends on the time of year. When I started, it was in September, so it was kind of that normal start of the cycle. You got your summer off and everything. If I were to go back and redo culinary school at CIA, I would not recommend going then. I would actually recommend starting in the winter or in the spring, or vice versa, whatever, doesn't matter, because you have less students in your class.
Yeah.
When I was there was 20 of us in each class because there was like four culinary classes. And it was like, okay, there's a lot of culinary students, and you each have 20. By the time you graduate, people drop out or they leave, and you might not have 20 in your necessary class. Um, but or some people miss a class, so they have to go back a block or whatever. Like I had to retake one of my classes when I was there because I got sick and I couldn't keep up with the learning of it, because I had to retake one of my, it's like my fish class, my fish fabrication class, which is funny because I love fish and I had to retake that class. Because yeah, like I said, I got sick and I was having trouble keeping up with the coursework because they're fast. They're only 3 week classes, so they're super fast. When you only have 14, 15 days of class, if you miss one, you're behind. And
Okay,
so, but
so um, I want to ask a couple questions before we jump on to what you're currently doing, teaching at a school. So my first one, I'm just curious, um, do you tend toward enjoying a broad range of foods, or do you stay away from certain foods, like you just don't enjoy them? Um, like, do you enjoy, I mean, you said that you made cookies. I'm assuming that you enjoy sweets, but do you enjoy spicy food and Cajun food? And, is there anything that particularly attracts you or repels you?
oof, that's a good question. I'm pretty adventurous. I'll try pretty much anything. I will at least try it. There are certain items that I will not try. Obviously, I have some limitations to like I can't have dairy, so I have to stay away from a lot of dairy stuff. Um, and I'm not a huge slimy person, so anything that has kind of a slimy texture to it, uh, I might try it once. Probably won't try it again. Like oysters or stuff like that. I don't like oysters on the half shell. That's just not my thing. I don't like the
Got it.
texture of it.
Got it.
Um, the yeah, so I pretty much will try. I'll give everything a try. Like I love going to restaurants, looking at their menus, and going like if there is a like a chef style menu where you can kind of try things, I would do it just to get a flavor for things. You
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
can't.
What's that? What's that? A chef style menu?
Yeah, chef style menu. Yeah. So you can go like some not everybody does this. Some places will do a or like a chef's table style menu where they
Okay.
might give you smaller portions of things so you
Okay.
can try different items.
What would be
So
the
not
closest restaurant like that? Because I love experimenting with stuff, and if I could get five small portions, like I would absolutely love that.
ooh, I I don't know. That's one of those things where you have to almost know the chef and they might because you know them there's a side conversation in there of like hey
Okay.
we're going to do this little special thing for this table tonight and stuff like that they wouldn't necessarily advertise it because
But if I
when
asked
you're
the waiter or the waitress, um, what would I ask for?
I'll have to get back to you on that one because I don't know actually what you have to ask for that because not like I said, not a lot of places will do it because it's when you have all the people in the restaurant and stuff like there your lines flying you've got tickets coming in and all of a sudden you
Yeah, yeah.
get this special ticket and it's like no as a line cook you don't want the special tickets.
So now you came back from school. You've got a degree. You're you're in a position where now you can go to work at you've got a lot more options as to what kind of uh, restaurant you can go to work for. What would be the kind of restaurant that would require a degree versus we don't really care, we'll show you how we do it?
Most restaurants don't require any degree. They don't. From what I've read and understood is that going to culinary school will kind of push you forward probably about 5 years in industry. Of if you were to just go right into industry, it can push you about 5 years. Now, just because you have a degree does not mean that you're going to be a sous chef or you're going to come out right from culinary school and you're going to own a restaurant. It's not going to happen. I mean, maybe there might be a slim chance you might do that, but the chances are you're not. You're gonna graduate culinary school and you're gonna go out in industry and you're gonna be a line cook. That's what you're gonna do. And
Okay.
because you need the hours under yourself of practice and getting to know things because you don't know how to do it until you've actually done it. And we try to tell students that all the time of you have to have that like I said you have to have that willingness to learn. You have to go into knowing nothing, right? So even when I had my degree it was like I had to graduate and I had to go out and be like okay I know I'm not going to be a sous chef. I mean, okay, I take that back. I did graduate, and I actually went back to the place I internship at. He wanted me to come back as his sous chef because he really enjoyed having me there the summer prior. So he had me come back as his sous chef, and I was there all summer. And I was there, oh gosh, 5 to 6 days a week, 15 to 17 hour days.
Wow.
And by the end of summer, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm I'm 19 years old. I'm like, I'm done. I was a 20, I think at the time. I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted, and this is not for me. Like
Yeah.
this style of stuff was just not for me. And so I had to think about what did I want to do because I had my degree and I was like, man, I spent all this money. I got my degree. I still love cooking, but what I was doing was not enjoyable as much to me. And so I had to choose what I wanted to do from there. So
So, okay, so you go back to work there, you worked at some other place, and then you finally, like, what made it so that you went to being a an instructor on cooking? I know that you said you had a really positive experience while you were in high school at this same place. Um, so for you, was this like a no-brain decision? Was this a, oh man, this is this is what I need to do. I'm gonna go do this.
yes. So the chef that's there, so Chef Andrew McCauley, he's been there since the 90s. He's been there forever. I currently work with him. He's going to retire here in a couple years. And we'll see what happens from there. But he has been one of my mentors. He's the first chef that I ever had in my life. And I kept in contact with him through all the years. And he was just always there. If you could call him whenever you needed something like, hey, I had a question about something. You could give him a call and he'd have an answer for you. He was just always that person. And so when I was working out in Hillsboro, um, I had applied for a teaching position out in Pendleton, Oregon, and at the time, and I didn't get it. And I was really bummed because I was like, man, this is really something that I wanted to do. I had this calling of I wanted to give back somehow. And I always felt that teaching was one of those aspects where I could give back somehow. Of what did I learn? What have I learned and how can I pass it on to the next
Mm.
generation, right? And so that's why I applied for that. He helped me apply for it and all that stuff. Didn't get it. And then about a year later, he calls me and says, hey, what the guy I work with is retiring. I think you'd be a good fit for this position. And so I looked at it. I was like, this could be a good opportunity for me. So I went ahead and applied, got the job, and now it's been 5 years since I've been there. And I don't have any regrets to that. I love working there. I really love the school. I love what the school does,
Mm.
and I'm behind the school 100% in their decisions and the way that they teach students and stuff. So yeah, teaching is just a way for me to give back, and especially to that next generation because if you don't teach the next generation, you're going to lose that.
Was there anything that had changed from the time that you had left that school to the time that you joined it as a teacher? And were you what was the vibe like? Like there had to have been a change in your head. A I can't believe this. What are we doing here? From being the student to being the guy at the front of the class that everybody's looking at.
So that was very different for me. I had never had that experience of like, okay, I have 35 sets of eyes looking at me right now while I'm talking to them. Like this is a very new thing, and everything I say is they're going to repeat it and they're going to do just as I say, hopefully. And
Hopefully.
yeah, hopefully. And so that was a very different aspect. Now, when I took the position, I was like, okay, the world is always changing. There's always new ways to do things. There's always new concepts. There's new tools. And so we're always working on how can we keep our program on the cutting edge, right? How can we always push it forward? Because if we're stagnant, we're going to fall behind.
Mm,
And for 30 years, that's what this program has done is they've always pushed it to the next level, next level, next level, next level. They
mhm.
always reassess every few years and go, hey, is this still working? Is this still modern? That's why we have like all CTE programs have an advisory committee where they have a community members that come together and hey, you're doing this, or we ask questions and say, hey, is this still a modern thing that's happening? Back like 10 years ago, molecular gastronomy was this really cool idea. Everybody was wanting to try it. Like, the little, you ever go to like boba shop or not boba shops, frozen yogurt shops, and they have the little balls of juice that you can put on your frozen yogurt. So that's molecular gastronomy, right? So you can take juice and make little spheres of it. It's like, oh, this is really cool. Well, like it was really cool like 10 years ago. If you had that on a menu
Oh.
nowadays, it'd be like, okay, you're a little dated because it's like this was cool back then. But there's always those culinary trends that we're trying to like, yeah,
Yeah,
you
there
want
you
to
go.
you want to fit in, but you don't want to be um, falling behind of that curve.
That's fun.
Well,
That's
as we're teaching, we also look at our what are we teaching the students? Are we teaching them things that are classical? Are we teaching them things that are modern? So we're looking at how can we intertwine those two things to make it more fun for them too. Because because like right now I do a lot of like the front of house, so the dining room work. So I set tables and teach students how to serve and do all that kind of stuff too.
nice.
And so there's aspects to room design where it's like, hey, maybe let's not do this napkin fold because it looks like a 1970s dining room. Like if you went to the Red Lion Hotel back in the day at the is it the Quarry? Is that what was that restaurant
Hmm.
called? Yeah, that restaurant. It's like to me, they have this fat napkin fold called the fan, and it's in the glass, and it's like to me that napkin fold just looks like I walked into a 1970s dining room. Like I'm probably never going to use that because it's dated and it just looks old. And so there's things that we do in the restaurant industry that are changing and stuff.
Do you do any like side jobs? Are there side things that you do where, people hire you to come in and cook for an event?
I have done a few. I'm not huge on catering. It's not my favorite thing in the world. It's a lot of work. Um, Sometimes people not in industry don't realize how much work it is to do a catering event because you've got to
No,
bring
listen,
not
come on.
just it's like not just the food, but all of the equipment. There's all the prep work that goes into it, all the ordering. Like there's a laundry list of things that go into it. And so even at school, we do catering because we have a restaurant, we have a catering business at the school that we do
Mm.
for the students to learn, so they get actual hands-on experience. And we do a couple caterings offsite a year, and that's about it. We do that on purpose. One, just to give the students a little bit of opportunity of what that looks like, because there's times where, like this past December, we did about 100-person offsite catered event. We had to bring everything from the buffet line set up to silverware to the plates to glassware. Like we had everything we needed. And so to have all your ducks in a row is so important to have that. And it's just so much work that it kind of takes the fun out of it when you start going, okay, now it's the daunting part of it. You're looking at your list
Right.
going, oh my gosh, where do I start? And so that part to me isn't as fun. I love the more the service end of it. I love the happy smiles you get from people when they taste your food. It's like, oh, that's the enjoyment of it. And uh, so the catering aspect is just not my favorite part.
So how many days a week is the restaurant open?
So we're usually open Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. We're only open for breakfast and lunch because we're only open when students are actually there. Because we're it's like we can run a restaurant, that's not a big deal, but we want it's all about students. That's our focus is the
Yeah, yeah.
student education. So we're open
Okay.
Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. We do caterings and stuff on site normally. We try not to advertise as much because we can't be competitive with some of the other businesses around us, or we at least try not to be competitive. We do love having business. We love having people come out and do it. We do a lot of like family events. So student parents might have their business come over and they do a lunch or something like that, and that's great. We do that a lot. One of the Rotary clubs, they join us every Thursday, and they have their weekly meetings there. So for us, that's a great event for us because it's a weekly thing. The students look forward to it every week. We get to come up with new ideas, new food items. I think for 3 years we never repeated a single menu item, so it was just every
Wow,
single week it was just something different.
that's
And
amazing.
we try to rotate like chicken and beef and pork and stuff like that. So they're not having, oh, you're having chicken this week and chicken next week and chicken the following week. Like we try to
Yeah,
vary it. But yeah, we kind of prided ourselves there for a little bit of like not repeating the menu for 3 years.
that's amazing. Well, one, do you make the kids say yes, chef, and no, chef? Is that a thing, or is that just movies?
So that really depends on the chef that you have. Some chefs are very adamant. Like when I was at school, it was yes, chef. That was very typical. I even had French chefs that were like they you had to say oui chef, like that was what you said. And when they called out the tickets, right? They'd call out blah 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 blah, and you'd be like, "Yes, chef." That was the thing.
Wow.
That was saying, "Hey, I
Yeah, yeah.
heard you. I heard what you said. I'll make note of it." Right? We don't practice that over here. It's just more of a hey, make sure you're taking notes kind of thing. Like if I tell you something, take notes. Hey,
Okay,
don't
so
just put it in your brain.
when you have students, like, how do you maintain quality with your students in the school? I'm assuming that they the order gets placed, it goes back to the kitchen, a student starts making it, or is it just a single line item that you guys are making that day?
We we
What's that?
have we have like probably 3 to 4 items on the menu normally at a time. Our line usually has about 5 people on it or so that they delegate. We usually have a lead student. So like the program's a 2-year program, and so when we uh, put our second years in charge, they are leaders of the program. So we try to design it so that the second year students have to lead the first year students. Some of the programs on campus don't do that. We decided to do it that way because it develops leadership skills
Yeah,
that they can use out in industry. So if somebody orders food, it would go back to our line, and from there they'll make the food. This, like I said, the second year student would be the leader of that line. They'll make sure the food gets made. We usually time everything because we're always going, hey, we want that 7 minute time. Now, breakfast food usually doesn't take that long because it's a little faster. But especially for lunch, that 7 minute timer is pretty crucial. We don't want people sitting there waiting 20, 25 minutes for their food. It's not very fun, especially when we only have an hour long service. So it's like, okay, they've been here the whole time. Let's move this along a little bit. So
what would you say to to a kid that may be in middle school that's starting to pick up on this vibe that, man, I really like this, but at the same time, they may feel a little weird because nobody else they know likes this. How do you encourage them if even like their household isn't telling them, go, do it, you're really good at this, and encouraging them? How would you encourage them to pursue that?
my thing is go for it. You never know until you try something. You never know what you're going to learn. As long For me, as long as I kept my focus on what I wanted and I had a specific target, I knew exactly what I wanted. As long as I kept that focus on something and I had something that I'm achieving, there was always something that I could go for. Um, now I'm a big Christian guy, so like for me, as long as I for like especially for your grandkids and stuff like that, for me, as long as I kept my focus and on God and kept Him centered in my life, I didn't dwell on mistakes that I made and stuff like that. I even got like chefs are notorious for getting tattoos, right? That's just kind of one of the things. I have a few tattoos on my arms. Like I have a pig on my arm that has like the subprimals. Well, I have a
Yeah, I saw
tattoo on
that.
my wrist. Oh, it's up there.
I
Yeah,
was going to
a
say,
little
you could
little
actually
pig
show
tattoo.
me the tattoo. It's on your
And
bicep there. Yeah.
but I have a tattoo on my wrist that says fearless because I knew that a daily reminder for myself that as long as I go into something without the fear that I'm going to fail, or even if I do fail, I'm going to learn from those mistakes, right? And as long as I learn from that, I'm going to be good. And so for my words of encouragement is just go for it, because you never know what you're going to learn or what you're going to find out. And a lot of times you learn from your mistakes.
Okay, so I got two questions from my grandkids. One's a 7 year old,
Perfect.
one's a 9 year old. Okay. Have you ever made a themed party food like Mario or Bluey?
So I have two kids. So the Bluey one, yes, we have done. We did a Bluey themed birthday party a couple years ago, and we had to go through and we tried to play like have punny names for everything. So like if you had like I think we had hot dogs, so we did like the long dogs, right? So like the long dog from Bluey. There's some other ones we did. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of what else we did. It's been a couple years. But
Did you
yeah, it's
do a
always
Bluey cake?
so I had my mom make. She always does the cakes. She always does everybody's
Oh,
birthday cakes. That's what she does. So like growing up, we never bought a store bought like Safeway cake or
wow, that's
cupcakes,
fun.
something like that. My mom always made the cakes for everybody, family, friends. Like they'd always come to her, and she'd make a birthday cake.
Bailey, my 7 year old granddaughter, asked, have you ever made a donut?
Yes. Oh yes. Donuts. So it depends on the style of donut you want. Do you until you have had a fresh donut right out of the oil that's been glazed or however you're gonna have it, and you're eating it nice and hot. Oh man. You may think that like, oh, Krispy Kreme's the best donut, and then you have a real donut right off the fryer, and you're like, I'm never going back.
All right, Justin Bennett, I appreciate you coming on, and
Yeah.
I I expect that that people are going to listen to this, and you know what? It's things like this that sometimes actually change the trajectory of people's lives. And part of the whole point of this program is to give people tools so that they'll go make courageous
Mhm.
decisions and go live an adventurous life. And going to New York City or going to New York, that is so dope. And not working in a factory is super cool. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to. I'll catch up with you later, I'm sure.